Throughout my active ministry, one of my favorite pieces of ministry was try to develop a sense of community in any church that I ever served. In some I was successful, in others I was not. And those that were not successful, it wasn't my responsibility or my doing. The church didn't want to be the church that it was called to be. So with that thought in mind, I'd like to share with you my feeling and my concept of what a community is like, particularly the community called the church. And I think that the psalmist had it right when he or she said, "How very good and pleasant it is when people live together in community." Living in community as God's people is the goal of Christian people. Would you not agree? Yes. Meaningful living cannot exist apart from relationships in community. Deprived of relationships, we feel a sense of loneliness, an aching void that frustrates our living to produce a wholesome life. There's no greater community on earth than the community of the church. Where else can we find healing for our broken hearts and spirits? Where else can we find renewal for those broken hearts? Where else can we find true acceptance for who we are? Don't you see, life is indeed empty apart from the Christian community. Where else are we truly appreciated and understood but in this Christian community called the church? What then does God's gift of community give to us? I think I can sum it up in one word: life. Life just doesn't hang together apart from community. What kind of life can we expect living in this community called Pass-A-Grille Beach Community Church? And here is just a list of some of the ingredients that you might find as you knock on the doors of this church. A sense of belonging, a feeling of support and caring, a place where you do find healing for all the pain and sorrows, a place where you are truly loved for who you are or what you stand for. Here you find forgiveness, past, present, and future. Acceptance for who you are with no strings attached. We grow and find nourishment and strength through the giving and receiving of attention and recognition. And who does not want that kind of feeling? When we enter the doors of our church, this is what you can expect of us: a community open to all. Do you embrace that? Of course you do. A group of people who are caring and loving. Haven't you experienced that? Yes, you have. A place where we live in unity in spite of diversity. There's more diversity in this church than you can shake a stick at. This openness is expressed in an ad of the UCC a few years back, and I was part of a committee that previewed this ad that went out on national television. And perhaps you saw it. Great, wasn't it, huh? Two men holding hands. An Hispanic man, a person in a wheelchair. And the caption said, "Jesus didn't turn people away, and neither do we." The ad wanted to get the message across that inclusion is indeed a Christian value, something to be practiced and to live up to. In that 30-second clip, the United Church of Christ says, and I repeat, no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcomed here. I think that's the greatest motto of any church that I know, that particular statement. And we believe that in the United Church of Christ. The ad clearly states we UCC folks are striving to be like Jesus, who turned no one away. No one wants to be rendered invisible. For instance, when we pass a homeless person on the street, do our eyes avoid human contact, or do we look down at our shoes? Treating them just like they didn't exist. When we meet people on the elevator in a wheelchair, do we keep our eyes on them? Or again, do we keep our eyes on our shoes, making no eye contact? It's really unfair to treat people as though they didn't exist. Ask any disabled person what bothers them the most, and here's what they say. The spiritual pain of constantly being treated as if they were invisible. Just a smile may be all that they need. Isn't it really unchristian to turn our eyes away from those who are different from us? I think so. Maybe, if we look at it carefully, maybe we are the different ones. God has created us to live in community where no one should ever feel that they are invisible. Living in community is the joy and fulfillment of being human. Each one of us is God's precious gift. Can you say that to yourself? I am a precious gift of God. In God's eyes, no one is more important than anyone else. God values each one of us with the utmost respect and dignity. But here's the rub. No one can be forced to treat another with the same respect and dignity as shown to us by God. It must be done freely and unconditionally. It has to become from a caring heart. When we come together in community, God's gift of caring is released. God invites us all to an endless dance of loving relationships. I've seen that time and time again as I go about my ministry here in this place. We dance to replace alienation with reconciliation. We dance to replace bondage with freedom. And we dance to replace walls of division with a sense of unity. The letter of 1 John makes clear that God's intentions for our living in community is this. Beloved, let us love one another, because love is of God. God is love, and those who abide in love abide in God, and God abides in them. You and I represent God when we heal broken relationships, or when we give hope where there is a tear. We are called God's hospitality table, where strangers feel welcome and not turned away. It's just good table manners not to turn anyone away. Remember that during Jesus' ministry, he turned no one away. He practiced good table manners. Even when Jesus didn't get the recognition he deserved, he treated every person, regardless what anyone ever did to him, with love and acceptance and respect, even to those who caused him his death. And here's what he said, his final words: "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." He followed up with these words: "This is my commandment, that you love one another." So let us then sum up the meaning of living in community. First, let us receive God's gift of community and treat it with respect that it deserves. Then let us give thanks to God's precious gift. There is no greater community than the church, bar none. Let us rejoice always and give thanks. Amen.